Good morning, grade 11 student. This is your teacher calling in, Mr. Simon Philip Liu of Australia. Just giving you guys a quick outline of what we need to do for this lesson. Obviously, we're getting some feedback that you guys have been given a lot of work. So I'll try and slow it down. I'll try and give you guys a few days to do this one, but we'll see. As I said, I'm not overly worried too much about the pace that we're going in biology because we've done all our summatives for the quarter. Okay, so for today's lesson, what we need to do is Google Classrooms, and then we will go, excuse me, and then this one here, lesson 3, infectious diseases. So really, in terms of how a infectious disease can be transmitted, there's really, I guess, you hopefully saw that in the gizmo the other day, but there's really a couple of different ways. The gizmo probably oversimplified it a little bit in terms of just looking at person to person in airborne and foodborne. But there's also vectors. So these ones here, vectors are pretty important as well. And this is what you probably know as, in terms of mosquitoes, which are pretty much the best vector in the world. And also things like rats, ticks are really good. So there's 2 different types of things here as well. The other one something can be is it can also sort of be transmitted via waterborne. And the other one is, looking over here, is what we call the fecal-oral route. This is still a big issue in developing countries in the world that don't have adequate sewage systems. So really, it was a big problem until the 19th century where people used to have things called chamber pots. And basically, instead of going to the toilet, you would just take a poo in a pot, like a large sort of pot, or a poo or a wee, and then you would leave it there. Generally, because you were doing this in the middle of the night, and then the next morning you would go and you'd basically throw it out on the street. So that led to a lot of diseases that were pretty easily prevented with the invention of modern sewage systems. Most of those diseases are now pretty well preventative. The big scary ones are obviously your airborne virus, because that's what we're worried about at the moment. In terms of someone who's infected can leave that behind in an area. So you've also got droplets, and these, I guess, is generally a little bit more direct. And then you've got person-to-person contact, which is through kissing or sexual relations and things like that. So your body, luckily for you, your body has defense systems against this. This is what we call our first layer of defense. So your first layer of defense is, best of all, is your skin. Okay, so your skin is really good at fighting off the germs that come onto it. Your skin's slightly acidic. It's also 7 layers, so it's actually quite thick, in terms of it's always rotating. So the skin on the outside is always your dead epidermis, it's called. Whereas underneath, you've constantly got new skin coming up and replacing it. And the best part about your body also is that if you do cut yourself, a scab will form, which seals up that. So otherwise, things like pathogens and that would be able to go directly into your bloodstream. Obviously, as well, you'd slowly bleed to death, which is also not good. So your first defense mechanism there is scabs. The next one there is actually tears and eyelashes. So in terms of things entering through your eyes, often things can get caught in your eyelashes. And you'll feel this sometimes, especially when you wake up. You've sort of got that grime on the inside there of your eyes. And you've also got a high salt concentration, which can also sort of dry up that area and kill off the microorganisms. As you head down, stomach acid is an excellent one here. So some bacteria, like the Helicobacter pylori, have adapted to be able to live in highly acidic conditions, but most bacteria and pathogens haven't. So I guess it's a good way to try and kill them is your pH 2 stomach acid. The hairs in your nose, a lot of people pluck them. They look disgusting, but they're actually really good defense mechanisms. You also have a layer of mucus in here, and when that reacts with various things, it actually will look at the snot. So it's actually a good idea to keep a layer of snot in your nose and also keep the hairs in your nose, just in terms of defense mechanism for diseases. Here's one I've mentioned already is the skin. I don't think I've missed anything too much there. And then finally, you have a layer in your throat, in your trachea. You've got two pipes in your throat. One's called the trachea, which is your windpipe, and the other one is called your esophagus, which is your food pipe. So basically, these will have little hair. They're called cilia, should I say. They're also found in your digestive tract as well. And really, they are also producing mucus. And are also providing a way to just sort of like the pathogens can stick to these as you move down into the stomach, and that's it. So it's what we call our first layer of defense. I'm trying to think if there's anything else there that we need to talk about. I don't think so. So for that activity, all you need to do is basically just go over here and grab open this Google document, and I just want you to add in those 6 defense methods just in your own words. So by doing that, you can just go and add a text box and just type in your own words what it was. So if you go insert and then it's drawing in Google Docs and go new, you can then make a text box and type that in. And then sort of move and adjust it as you need to. So, it might be stomach acid. Maintains a pH of 2 to fight non-resistant bacteria. Okay, blah blah blah. I expect more detail from you. It'll probably do this silly thing here, and you probably need to go wrap text. Is it, or is it in front of text? Why don't you break text, and then you can move it to where you need to. Okay, so pretty much just do that and then submit later on. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is something called epidemiology. So epidemiology is the study of diseases. So what you'll need to do is you'll look at this one here. And I usually do this activity differently in class, and it's quite a good activity usually, but I've sort of abbreviated it here. Anyway, such is virtual learning. So what I want you to do is basically the year is 1860, and there's a terrible outbreak of cholera in the city of London. Strangely, cholera is quite a deadly, nasty disease. It's a pretty nasty way of dying, really. You end up being really, really dehydrated, and eventually your organs end up sort of just consuming themselves. What happens here is basically, strangely, the outbreak is centered in only a small part of the city, although the number of cases is clearly rising. Many people believe that the disease is being spread by the bad air. Looks like I forgot the bad air quality in industrial London. So during this time, London was really going through the Industrial Revolution, and the city had changed from being one of, a couple of 100,000 people into the biggest city in the world at the time. And this really led to a lot of smog and pollution and things like that. Generally, a lot of people struggled to breathe there just because of all the coal factories and things like that in London. So the City of London has turned to you, a local genius, to solve things. You have got to work out where the cholera came from, suggest a solution to the problem, suggest how the epidemic could have started, and then finally here, present your findings to the important people in the City of London. And you can do that answering D just in a couple of paragraphs. Okay? All right, so if you go down here, I have given you some evidence to look at. So cholera is a waterborne disease. It is especially common where people drink polluted water. Now, what this is it's an epidemiological study. So someone's gone out and gathered these statistics, and what you need to do is actually plot these onto a map. So if you go back, my last thing here is map of area, and you have house number 1. So if you want to go and just type, 40 and 80 deaths between those 2 months, so it's increasing. The number of cases there is increasing, and that's generally when we have an epidemic, is we have an exponentially, so I need to do that in front of exponentially increasing number of cases, okay? So exponential, hopefully we know what that it means by grade 11, but it looks like that. Okay, so there's a really rapid increase in cases. Damn, how do I get rid of that now? Eraser. Okay, so you need to plot that onto this chart. Okay, I tried to put it on the same document, but Google Docs wasn't a massive fan of it. Now, what that'll do is hopefully that'll give you some clues. That'll give you guys some tips in terms of how to do this. Back are we? Come on, move with me. There we go. All right, so the next thing is there's just some more additional information to help you with that. Don't Google it. Just think about it yourself. Use that big, beautiful brain of yours and answer the questions. When you finish the activity, then you can come down here and watch this YouTube video, which is, going to be helpful. And then really there's just some comprehension activities here. We go over again what an epidemic is. There's that exponential growth I was talking about. It talks about Ebola as an example of that, the outbreak of Ebola. And then down here we have what sets off an epidemic. And I've given you a couple of case study scenarios here to do that. I will make this. So I know we've been saying, it's the work from each lesson has to be due within 24 hours. This is due on Sunday. Okay, so I'll be checking this on Sunday. So if it's not a high priority for you, if you've got somebody for other subjects, do this later on the weekend, whatever. But that's pretty much it. If you've got questions, feel free to send them through. If you're interested in doing a virtual chat online or something like that, we can also do that. Just let me know. Keep talking to me. Stay safe. See you guys.